What is Phil Foden looking at in the lead up to his first goal? The first of 2 goals. It's a great game here. So interesting from a tactical point of view. And actually, I was having a look at the most amount of shots in a game of football from a certain player in the Premier League. And I was having a look at StatHead for that, of course. And on StatHead, it shows that 10 shots is the most from a game. Now, Phil Foden had 9 shots in this game. Another thing I'll quickly show is actually, again on StatHead, is that Man City have the most possession of any team in the top 5 leagues this season. But the player who facilitated Phil Foden in this game was the player that had less touches than any other Man City player aside from Haaland and Ederson. We're going to get to all of that. We're going to talk about Man United's tactical setup here, and I think it's one of those ones where I expect on YouTube people are going to go after Man United. I don't think this is the day for that. I think there are moments, and there's a player in here that we need to talk about when it comes to the second and the third goal for Man United that I wonder about. And actually, this entire Man United team, I put it out on Twitter. I'd love to know how you guys feel about it. Are Man United fit enough? That's a question I have. Does that lack of fitness in terms of what I'm seeing here, what is that coming from? Is that coming from lack of a plan? What I've got to say is I think this team had a plan today. They really, really did. And the plan was, and I've obviously used one half of the pitch because it was utter dominance from Man City from the start of the game, aside from the Rashford goal, which will break down the great movement that allowed that goal to happen. And it was a game full of really, really interesting movement. In terms of the tactics, it was out of possession. I think this is the main thing to show you from this. It was a 4-4-2 from... What's Ericsson doing there? It was a 4-4-2 for Man United in this one. And from a pressing point of view, when they could in transition, it was Fernandes and it was McTominay who were trying to get forward as quickly as possible. And it's from that out of possession setup that the goal came for Man United. Obviously, wow. Talk about purity. Let's have a look at the goal because it's honestly, it's so interesting. And actually, I give respect to Man United on this one and Ten Hag because I think sometimes you're not going to be able to play through a team. And we've done videos on this. We spoke about it in the Chelsea tactical video, which I'm sure you can see when they drew 4-4. The Wolves game as well, way back at the start of the season. In defensive transition, the problem that you have for Man City when you do play long passes is that you've got a lot of players that are kind of moving into new positions out of the ball and in possession, especially at Man City, more so than probably any club on the planet. And that's what did them. If you think of Onana and that game against Arsenal earlier in the season when he was going, come press me and then we'll play through you. Nah, I think they knew which way their bread was buttered. Don't know if that's a Samanism. We'll find out soon enough. But they played those long balls. And it was a smart move. It was the right move. And actually, if we move it on, we can see that it was the right thing to do because Onana plays a good pass. I thought Onana had a really good game today. And there was a few good performances, but one glaring heat map, which I'll show you in a second as well. But that ball was played up. Bruno Fernandes was able to get on the ball. And as I said, importantly, if you think of that out of possession setup that Man United have, that 4-4-2 out of possession, it was those two players who were willing to press for the team in McTominay and, of course, Bruno Fernandes that allowed, I don't know if we can sneak him in there, you can see Rashford just on the edge of shot there. It allowed, in this moment, to utilise what comes a lot of the time when it comes to Man City, and it's a big amount of space in defensive transition. And with that space, Rashford's able to kind of take his time in terms of his run into this space, but so crucially in this, so importantly in this, McTominay's run is so important. McTominay initially is here and obviously ends up here. And by doing that, the person in particular that he takes out of it a little bit is Rodri. Interestingly, Stones, of course, is getting back into position, but with the rest of the team playing so wide as they do, as I said previously, it creates this massive bit of space here, and Rashford is able to get onto it. And, again, give me a word in the comment that describes it. The word that I was thinking about that I keep coming back to is pure. This is why we watch the game, to see goals like this, and there were some great goals in this. And a lot of long-range goals kind of at the moment, which is an interesting trend, something to maybe keep an eye on. Look, it's a very unlikely goal to be scored, but in terms of a Man City side wanting to have good shape, the back four is not in a good place there, if you know what I mean. But again, it's because everything is happening so quickly. And generally, look, Stones, let's be honest, I'll show you Stones' heat map. Stones is not a defender, but apart from those few moments in defensive transition. So that was Man United's goal. And after that, it was all Man City. All Man City. And the one thing that I thought was really interesting was that it was about width for Man City, trying to get those overloads, and they got that a lot of the time. And actually, in time, it really, really wore down that low block from Man United. Another positive, I think, for Man United, you were compact, which has been a problem. And I think overall, the most damning thing for Man United this season is not a game like this. It's a game like Fulham last week, because that is the building block towards being a great team. It's being able to beat the rest. Then you concern yourself with being able to beat the best, because it's a very, very different game of football that you're playing there. Let's keep moving forwards, because I think what's really interesting in the goal for Man City and the role of John Stones is a big part in this. But defensively, what Man United were trying to do was they were trying to stay resolute. And what happened a lot of the time, and I'll show you a screenshot in a second, was that, let's get rid of that, was that Delo was kind of having to come across. Garnacho or Fernandes at times would look to come and work for them. Haaland was staying in the middle, of course, at all times, which at times meant that both centre-backs were getting to become a little bit narrow. And what that meant was there was these gaps here, which Man City were looking to exploit as much as they could. But overall, it was someone like Casemiro coming over or Mainu coming into those areas to go and help out if they were able to get into those areas of the pitch. But it felt like something was coming. And, I mean, the game really was within this area of the pitch. And, again, Stones and Rodri, their roles in this game were absolutely fantastic. And Stones in particular constantly was playing in the pockets of space. Now, when I say that, in particular, there was a focus I felt with Stones to look to try and get into this area here. And this square here, if we think of Casemiro, Mainu, McTominay, and Fernandes or Garnacho, depending on who it was, because what it did was it meant it sucked players towards them. And so let's show you the goal, because the goal shows you everything you need to. In terms of the touches of the game, as I said, John Stones regularly was a player who got into these lovely areas, sucked in players or froze them, meant that they had to stay where they were, because if they came out of place, it made life difficult. And that led to problems for Man United. And the goal comes from exactly that. Here's a screenshot that explains exactly what I'm talking about when we're talking about that gap between Johnny Evans, who doesn't want to come out, but more importantly, this big, big area here. Bum, 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 bum. And it was coming. And let's have a look at the goal, because the goal was absolutely brilliant. But what's crucial in all of this, and we spoke about it right at the start of the video, Foden, what's he looking at? I think he's looking at John Stones, but I think he's also looking at this space here, importantly. And obviously, well, I think we know that was the case, because he goes like that, doesn't he? And then what does he do? He goes, Fooda! Goal. But John Stones' role in this is so important. He's so smart. He's such a great decoy for the team. But actually, he's not even a decoy, really, because what he is, he's comfortable on the ball if you give it to him there anyway. And both Rodri and Stones, time and again, were actually like this. They were actually right by each other. And this is obviously just before the pass that comes. And actually, I think we'll probably see it when we see the goal from Foden. Rodri carries on his run, which again just shows how attacking-minded they are, how strong they believe in what they're doing, and how it's all about movement. It's all about displacing the opposition. And as I say, Man United, super, super compact here, and it looks like they're fine. But this space has been created. And why has this space been created here? It's because of John Stones. It's so because of John Stones. And exactly what I was talking about in terms of this box. One, I'm sure there's better ways I can draw this. But John Stones, by doing that, he sucks all those players in and makes them have to stay. Are there other things that can happen that can help Man United stop that goal? Yeah, you're not expecting a thunderbolt from John Stones there. But we would expect, when you think John Stones, where does he play? Well, he plays here. No. He did not. Throughout the game, constantly looking to find that square of those 4 Man United players to bring people towards him, to create space a little bit wider. And I wonder which way we need to go here to move it on. Obviously, the screamer comes from this. And that, like I just said, Rodri, that is not the position that you expect him to be. Interestingly, John Stones actually just focusing on De Bruyne, who's just moved into that position for him. It's so fluid from Man City in this one. And look, you needed a bit of brilliance to get yourself that goal, to get yourself back into it. But again, this is the first moment from it. And what it does is, look, 1, 2, 3, just brings them in. And McTominay's a little bit concerned, of course, with Rodri as well. And it just creates all that space. Great movement from these two in particular. They had fantastic games. And next time you watch Man City, watch John Stones, because he is consistently having a look around. And this is a moment in the first half where he's doing exactly the same thing. You can see him right here. And who's around him? 1, 2, 3, 4. Casemiro, Mainu, McTominay, and Fernandes. And it sucks those players in, which leaves space out wide. Again, Man United looking to be compact here, which I don't mind. But that then obviously leaves space for someone like Kyle Walker down that left-hand side. But of course, you've also got, importantly, Phil Foden, who was looking for the ball there. And it was making life difficult, again, for this 4 in midfield. But that only comes if John Stones is affecting the game, which he does time and again. The second goal, this is where we need to talk about Casemiro. I think he's running out of legs. I think that, I know, it's one where I don't really want to ever put that on someone's door, if that makes sense. Because I feel like with Casemiro, or any player, you can't just lose your legs like that, can you? But this whole team doesn't look fit enough to me. When it comes to the average positions, there was a lot of movement here, so don't look at these in terms of their general average positions. It's more about the heat maps of these players, and I think Doku, as we said, played very, very wide throughout the game. Foden stayed wide on this right-hand side as well for the team, and that led to those spaces in between. And as you can see from players like Casemiro, you could see he was looking to try and sort of put out those fires and almost sweep the back line when that width came from the 2 centre-backs having to stay where they are and the full-backs having to go and engage. And overall, they did okay with it, but as I say, they got worn down. And we've got to talk about Casemiro because I just feel like he's struggling. He really looked knackered in those last few minutes. And the 2 goals, the second goal and the third goal, I've got to say, it feels like they were on him. Let's move towards that. Because, I mean, obviously an incredible player, and you've got a team, and 79 minutes gone. And again, this is where we've got to give Foden his flowers. What a player. What a bloody player, right? But I think when Doku came off, Doku's output was poor in the first half, and that was part of the reason why Man United were able to survive that first half of the game, because he was able to cut in, but there wasn't real end product there. And I think in terms of the fluidity of the whole team, when you've got Foden, Silva, De Bruyne, Stones playing the role that he does, and again, he's doing a similar action here in terms of him and Rodri not being side by side, but being a bit more vertical with what they're doing. Haaland taking up a player as well. But Casemiro gets caught out here. And Foden spoke about it. He said that Guardiola said, why don't you swap with Bernardo Silva because he's got that little bit of electricity. Look at the time here. 79:42. Casemiro. And it's great movement from Alvarez. And actually, I think we can probably take it back one maybe. Here is before the ball. And it's just that little movement from Foden off him. Casemiro can't stay with him and he can't stay tight at all. And if he is tight enough, then they're in a better place because he probably plays the ball backwards. But because he's that little bit tired, in my opinion, Foden's able to get on the ball. And if we move it along, Foden's now got the ball, as I said, 79:42. And then within 2 seconds, just go back again. Look at the distance between these two. Here. We move it on one. He's gone past him like nobody's business. Absolutely shocking, really. I mean, I guess, look, Foden's unbelievable, and so it's harsh to call him on that, but your job is to not allow the ball to get into this area of space, and it did, and then Foden did what he does, right? The last goal, I think, is also one where, again, look, Amrabat has an absolute stinker here, so we've got to be careful in terms of putting too much on Casemiro's door here. But again, the pass has come from Casemiro. The ball should not be in the air like that. He shouldn't have to deal with that. Should he figure it out? Sure. Of course he should. But again, it comes from a tired pass from Casemiro. I'm putting it out there as a question. I don't really like doing that. And again, I want to come back to what... There are some positives here for Man United. I think in terms of sticking to the task, I thought Johnny Evans had a really good game. I thought Delot, he's getting moved about right back, left back. And I thought Varane, when we're talking about heat maps more than average positions, that's Varane's heat map. And that's not where you want Man United to be. 2 questions. First of all, these are the players that I think Man United should stick with moving forward. Aside from that, I think the rest of them have got to go. Am I being a little bit too kind? Let me know in the comments down below. And when it comes to Erik Ten Hag, is he the man for you? If he's not, I may have put forward the perfect manager for you and any team in the Premier League right here. So why not click on it?